Hi, everybody, and welcome to yet another recorded Zoom interview. Two guests today, both from the Washington Geological Survey. Joel Gombiner in the upper left, Dan Coe in the upper right. They're office mates at the Washington Geological Survey in Olympia. Joel, let's start with you. What's the weather like today in Olympia, Washington?
It's heating up. We're in the mid 70s, might push 80.
Very good. Thank you.
Summer's here.
Yeah, summer's here, and Joel is a
Yeah.
regular a viewer. Dan. Not to be
Yep.
outdone, Dan has got. Can we see that one more time? That's your
Oh yeah,
summer.
yeah.
That's your summer
Some
flip-flops. Yes, look at that. Perfect. Okay, good. Well, thank you. Let's get right into this. I think first step might be having each of you talk about your titles and your roles, even though you're office mates, essentially next door to each other. Joel, how is your job different than Dan currently? Joel, what's your gig?
I'm an editor and Dan is a specifically a graphics editor. So that means um is that right, Dan?
Yep, you got it.
So we both work on everything that gets published at WGS, which is a variety of maps, reports, investigations, and our role is to edit it and publish it, which means checking the text, evaluating the ideas in the paper, and then making everything look nice.
Thank you, Dan. Is that pretty much your job as well, or how's your job different than what Joel just said?
I would say, yeah, that's completely accurate. In addition to all that, we also manage the websites and provide data through different data portals and different ways of conveying it to the public. My job, different than Joel's, is I have more of a visual focus, so I work a lot on maps in particular, illustrations, video, photography, things like that as well. Anything that has a visual element to it, I usually get to work on in some form.
Thank you. You're both very humble fellows. I'm huge fans of both of yours. Let's do one more before we get to the main slide that I think will be featured today. Uh, Training wise, Joel and Dan. Joel, you did some geology work where and how recently have you been with the survey?
So I did my PhD at the University of Washington, which I completed in 2022, and I've been at the survey for about a year and 3 months now.
Thank you. And Dan?
I've been with the survey about almost a decade now, which is crazy to think about. And then previous to that, I was with the Oregon Department of Geology, Dogami, for about 5 years as well in a similar role.
And are you a geologist?
I'm not a geologist. Thanks for asking. I'm more of a geographer. My educational background is in geography and the visual arts. So,
Visual arts.
um, yep.
Okay. Joel, you're the guy that contacted me and said, "Hey, how about we try something like this? What's the purpose of this video today?"
So Dan created this beautiful photorealistic computer rendering of Dry Falls, which has come up many times on your show and is an iconic uh, landform in Washington. And as the purpose of this visualization is for a 3 foot by 2 foot poster that's going to be available to the public. And as we're making this, a question that comes up a lot is what are people interested in about Dry Falls? And we do our best to guess, but you have access to, and you have this incredible audience and following that I know is fascinated with Dry Falls and I know has interest in specific aspects of it. So our thought was instead of guessing what people are interested in, why don't we ask them directly and ask you what kinds of questions and interests you have about Dry Falls as well?
Okay, I love it. So, am I hearing that this is about to be a published brand new poster and you're looking for kind of maybe last minute input on some detail? Is that going too far?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And in addition, we're taking advantage of new LiDAR that's been collected in the last few years for the channeled scablands. So the idea is that this is going to be the first of many posters of interesting features and areas. And we're also curious about what else we should depict in this way.
Excellent. I can't stop. One more, and then we'll go to the poster, I promise. Dan, is this the first time that you've gathered a bunch of public input before you've released the poster? This isn't your first time doing this.
Yeah, I would say so, yes, especially in this way. We have other people reviewing the map with the state parks and other Ice Age floods experts as well. But so we've done that sort of professional review in the past, but this is kind of the first sort of crowdsourced review, I guess you could say, that we've done, and I think it's a great idea. So I'm excited.
Wonderful. Well, without further ado, I'm officially excited now. I want to see this thing, and then we'll just go with whatever you guys want to do. Or if maybe the poster's not the first slide, I don't know. But let's go to some slides and however you guys want to do this, and I'll butt in every once in a while if you don't mind,
Sure.
and kind of drill a little deeper if something really gets me going. So please, let's go ahead.
All right.
All right. Dramatic reveal.
There it is.
All right.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. So you can see it, Nick.
Oh my God, yes, I can. Oh my, I'm giddy right now.
So
I'll try to keep my mouth shut. Just go ahead here,
well, yeah,
Phil.
what's your first reaction?
My first reaction, come on now. My first reaction is every time I see something that Dan does, it's just the perfect angle from the air. Like these are places that I know, but I'm seeing it in a completely new way. I'm just so stunned by this, and I'm also just in real time thinking, my God, is this a drone shot? No, it's not, because you've got lidar and you've got visuals tossed in here as well. So I promise I'm going to keep my mouth shut, but this is a winner already. Come on, we'll lean into what the viewers want to spruce up a little bit, but good God, amazing. Please.
And I think a lot of people see these and they think this is a photograph.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a computer rendering that incorporates multiple different types of data and artistry to create a perspective on the landscape that is unique.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, okay, I'm going to have a hard time keeping my mouth
Yeah.
shut here. Like, Dan, what different angles did you play with, and why did you settle on this as the perfect view, quote unquote, of Dry Falls?
Yeah, I played around with the angles a lot,
Yeah.
and which we'll probably talk about this quite a bit, but the challenge, for a lot of people with visualizing Dry Falls is it's just so huge,
Yes.
and it's hard to wrap your mind around its vastness and its size. So, capturing the angle where, you're capturing the main part of Dry Falls that you're seeing when you're at the visitor center looking at the viewpoint, but also, capturing Deep Lake and all the features that are, closer to Coulee City and a lot farther away. Because this whole stretch is like 3.5, 4 miles wide, right? So this is a
Yes.
huge area we're trying to convey. And then not only showing that, but also connecting it back to human scale somehow. So with the sort of draped air photo, you can see Coulee City, you can see the highway, if you look really closely, you can see the visitor center as well. So it connects, that smaller human scale to this vast geologic scale, and relating those to each other, I think, is often the challenge when you're making a map of a feature that's just so big like this. So that all fed into kind of sizing up the right angle and figuring out the best way to show not only the nature of the landform, but also being able to connect it back to human scale as well.
I've got my nose up against the screen now. I'm literally like trying to figure out where some of these features are. Are you able to push in at all, Dan, with this? Or should we stay out here wide and try to just talk about the layout? And Joel, how do you want to do this? I'm taking over. I don't mean to take over. How do you want to do this?
Yeah, we had a couple slides to just remind viewers where Dry Falls is and what its role is in the Ice Age flood story. And then
Perfect.
Dan had a few slides to explain what LiDAR is and how he goes about making an image like this.
Good.
So do we want to run through those and then we
Sure.
can zoom in and out of the image and explore?
This is a winner. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so I think we've explained, the concept. This is going to be available as a poster that will be at the Dry Falls Visitor Center and at WGS. And it'll also be as a free high resolution image download for anybody on the internet to access.
Wow.
And we're at the stage where it's close to being done, but we're gathering feedback from geologists and from the viewers and from you. So we'll incorporate that feedback, and then we're hoping to print this thing in the next month or so.
Okay.
Finalize it.
See if I can advance to the next slide here. Go.
And you can see on the sidebar, we have two maps to provide some context about where Dry Falls is.
Mm-hmm.
And
give me 1 second.
Dan's hoping to advance to the next slide.
I'm on the wrong screen, so let me.
So do you think that, everybody knows, does everybody know what Dry Falls is or why it's important?
Why don't you do it with us verbally, Joel? There's nobody better than you. You did that PhD in the Ice Age floods. Can you do it in 3 minutes?
I'm hoping to do it in about 10 or 20 seconds.
Okay, good.
But it's, at the time that it was active, which was very brief during the height of the ice ages, it was the largest waterfall in world history, as far as I know. I could be fact checked about that. And it's an iconic feature because it really feeds into the interpretation of the Ice Age floods. There's this massive waterfall complex with no river running over it, and that breeds curiosity to anybody who looks at it. How did this thing form? And the interpretation is that it formed from gigantic glacial outburst floods from Lake Missoula. But it's also at this juncture between the path of the Missoula floods and the outflows from the Okanagan lobe. So with recent work that I did, and with Jerome suggesting that there were outburst floods from the Okanagan lobe as well, it begins to raise the question, what component of Dry Falls was eroded from the Okanagan lobe floods, from the Missoula floods? And another major area of research is, when did Dry Falls form and how much water was involved in its formation? And both of those are active questions of research that visualizing the landscape helps to address.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, Dan's doing some heavy lifting.
All right,
there we go.
I think we got there finally. Sorry about that.
It's fine. In and out of your chair, like peeking over your. This is, it's like trying to land a lunar module. All right, let's go. Let's go.
So yeah, the main flows that were responsible for eroding Dry Falls came from glacial Lake Missoula in Montana. The floods came through the Purcell Trench lobe, either under or through, or somehow destroyed the ice dam and flowed into glacial Lake Columbia, which is depicted on this map. And the overflows from glacial Lake Columbia poured down some combination of Grand Coulee and the eastern channeled scabland tracts. And those flows through Grand Coulee went over Dry Falls and down into Quincy Basin and onto the Ephrata Fan. So it's this location that's critical to the Ice Age flood story, and it involves sort of all aspects of it, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's such an iconic place.
Are these what we're looking at right now? Are these a couple of the things that are small on the margin of the poster?
Yeah, these are new maps that we created for the side of the poster to provide some context about how this fits into the bigger picture.
And so as we go today with the program, fellows, anytime you want to ask the viewers a specific question about, feedback for a particular map, if that's what you're trying to do, like just in general, like, what do you think? So they're all going to go, oh yeah, love it, love it. But if there's like some specific thing, I'm guessing, like, should we label something differently, or I don't know, maybe I'm stepping on Dan's toes. You guys have all carefully thought that out and you don't want to screw with that. Or is anything open for
anything's open? We're going to read every single YouTube comment, and take it into consideration. So if there's something you see that's unclear or that's you'd like to see on the map, we'd love to hear about that. We may not be able to accommodate the feedback, but
Yeah, you're sounding
we
like an
still
editor
want to
now.
hear
That's good. Okay.
it. Like a what?
Like an
Like an
editor.
editor.
All
We will
right,
use
Dan,
editorial discretion.
yes, Dan, I'm intrigued with what you did in the right panel there. That seems like a pretty new looking chart, and it's visually very appealing. Did you want to comment about the panel on the right, Dan?
On the right, yeah, I mean, we wanted to show Dry Falls within the context of Grand Coulee and kind of like Joel said, where it fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And there is some intro text on the map that kind of talks about some of these things, some of these side maps and how it fits in.
Hmm.
So, showing where the flow directions were coming from different sources and showing the direction of the main map view that's on there as well. So it kind of serves as a regional figure and also as sort of a tie into the text as well that's on the
Yes.
map.
And one of the challenges we had with that map on the right is that we wanted to show the landscape as it is today with modern roads and settlements,
Yes.
but we're also depicting flows that occurred 15,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we struggled with how to combine the present and the past on that map. And another challenge was that we wanted to show some of the tunnel channels on the Waterville Plateau
Yeah.
and how they connect to Dry Falls, but it's impossible to show all of them because they're small at this map scale. So we selected a couple representative ones and showed how they feed into Upper Grand Coulee and how the Columbia River connects to Upper Grand Coulee, getting at this idea that there's multiple inflows to Dry Falls.
Well, that'll be
And
exciting with somebody looking at this carefully and they're like, I thought I knew the Missoula flood story. What the hell? These guys are talking about something coming from the Okanagan? Like those that really know the story are going to be, I think, intrigued. Like, is that a mistake or is there some new work being done to actually show some of this Ice Age floodwater coming from the upper left? I like it.
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we could ask a question about is in a previous draft we had sort of an overlay of an approximation of where the Okanagan lobe would have been at a certain point in time.
Yeah.
And I think that may have helped connect those flows from that direction and showing that. So, maybe whether that's a good idea or not, if viewers think that would work with this map, there's a lot on here already.
Right.
So that was kind of the give and take. Like, do we add one more thing?
Yeah.
Maybe take some other things away? Um, whether that would be visually helpful to understand this story or not.
Well, I love it personally, but I'll be just as interested as you guys to see all these comments down below. And don't be shy, viewers. There's going to be a lot of comments left down below when you all watch this in replay, so it'll be fun to read all those things. What's next, fellas?
Kind of to your point of, asking about the view and sizing that up, there's a few, I looked at a lot of depictions of how Dry Falls has been shown before, and the ones that speak to me really clearly are sort of the aerial views.
Yes.
And this is a giant photo you'll see if you go into the Dry Falls Visitor Center, and it's one of my favorite depictions of this landscape. Not only because it shows much of the cataract and the cliffs and everything, including, you can kind of see the highway going up the side as well if you look closely.
Yes.
But it was taken before the inundation of Upper Grand Coulee, so Banks Lake isn't there, so you can actually see the land going up into the coulee, and way at the top is Steamboat Rock, so it gives you a nice contextual view of Dry Falls from the air. And then, linking that to sort of present day work, Bruce Bjornstadt's drone videos and photography, I think really connects with me really well in understanding this vast landscape. This is a great photo because you can actually see the visitor center in the upper left corner there.
Yeah.
For kind of the size comparison of the landscape versus the human scale there. So, these sorts of views really worked well for me. So I thought, why, rather than doing a top-down view, let's maybe make this a perspective view and more of a 3D idea.
Yes, Dan.
And
And those shadows have to be featured, right? The shadows are almost the star of the show.
yeah, and I can talk about the shadows here in a little bit, but
Yeah.
the shadowing on the map is actually coming from a completely unrealistic direction. When we go back and look at the map, we'll talk about that. But it's coming from the north, which, in the northern hemisphere, we get light from the east, south, and west pretty much, and not from the north. But the north is a more intuitive angle the angle that we picked. So, think about that when we're looking at these. But um, we did play around with that, and that's the benefit of using 3D elevation data versus a straight photo, which is going to have the natural lighting angles. So um, we did use lidar, so I'm just going to talk about lidar really quick. What that is,
Very good.
it's collected from a small airplane, the kind of lidar that we use, and it stands for light detection and ranging. So you fly an airplane over, you shoot a bunch of laser light pulses at the ground, they sort of bounce back up to the sensor, and by triangulating everything, each of those points where it hit an object and reflected back, it gets a set of coordinates. So if you look on that image on the right-hand side of Beacon Rock, here, let's zoom in on that. This image is just made up of millions and millions of data laser points where they hit an object and reflected back. So this has trees, you can see State Route 14 at the bottom there. The Columbia River kind of gives a sort of photo-esque view of things, and it's three-dimensional data, so you can move around and look at it from different angles. But you can take this information and you can make different kinds of elevation models out of it. And the first is called a digital surface model, and that's basically just sort of shrink wrapping everything. You interpolate the space in between the points and create this continuous surface. So it kind of looks like you put some saran wrap over the earth and sucked all the air out of it. So you've got trees, buildings, structures, things like that. But for geology, the really, really useful thing is to use what's called bare earth or the digital terrain model. And with that, you basically strip all that vegetation away, you strip all the structures away, and you get just the bare ground or the surface of the earth. So we actually use both in this visualization, but just to give you the background, that's the type of elevation models that we're using here. And Joel mentioned we did get new LiDAR data for dry falls recently. So this view is not LiDAR. This is the older terrain data that we had, that it was at like a 10 meter per pixel resolution. LiDAR is a 1 meter resolution, so 10 times more detailed. So I'll switch over to that and you can see the difference.
There we go.
Just an incredible amount of detail. And again, this is three-dimensional data. So this is looking straight down at the earth, but we can tilt that. And here's another depiction using that LiDAR hill shade or shaded relief.
Wow.
And so by using different lighting angles, you can make the landscape pop out really well and highlight the different features. So this was the final angle that we used. And then in order to kind of connect it more to what we're used to seeing, we used NAPE photography, and that's collected by the Department of Agriculture, also from an airplane. And so this is the photo sort of draped over the elevation model. It looks pretty neat, but you lose a lot of that detail that you get from those artificial lighting angles.
Yes.
So what I did was, and you can see the lighting here, it's mostly overhead, but there's a little bit coming from the east.
Yeah.
I digitally removed the shadows completely from the image and then blended that with the LiDAR, which makes it pop out really well. So you get the best of both worlds. You get that visual information from the photo, but you also get that sort of really detailed terrain information from the LiDAR. And then we can take this and edit it further, sort of tone down the colors, add some more details. The LiDAR looked really smooth in this, so we actually added kind of a texture over top of it to give it a little grittier, sort of realistic texture. And then we took this and then made this map out of it. So that's kind of the short and dirty version of how this was created. And we can switch over and zoom around, but the one thing we did is we highlighted several different features on the map. We've got potholes, we've got silt mounds, we've got the cataracts, we've got plunge pools, all sorts of different things that we have text on the map telling you about, as well as the intro text. So
okay, well,
that's it.
I got a few things to say. Thank you. You laid that out beautifully. So to see that build and to take the shadow out and then to add in the artificial shadow coming the other way or whatever, that's genius. Uh, Another thing is just an emotional response. Like I feel privileged to be able to see this before it's public, and I think many of the viewers will feel the same way. Dan, I'm such a huge fan of your work, and before I even knew who you were, I'm like, who is this person making these images like this, these posters? This is going back 6, 7, 8 years ago. So to get a chance to visit with you and really get the detailed scoop directly from the guy who's got this skill, I sometimes I fake it. Come on, man. Sometimes I fake it in these Zoom things. I am totally on fire right now looking at this. So thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
So Joel, is this an almanac? Are we trying to define terms? Is that one of the goals? Like, are we thinking about educators and saying this is what a angular basalt block is? I'm just trying to read the fine print. Or what are the ultimate goals for this publication?
I've been calling it an interpretive visualization or an interpretive poster. So the idea is to educate about geomorphology and geologic history,
Hmm.
because I think looking at the image is cool, but I imagine most people want more context about what they're looking at.
Yes. And they're not getting that. Well, I don't want to say it that way. This is a new way to see the whole thing in one beautiful oblique view, but then these details perhaps make more sense to them. I'm just imagining a casual person going, "Oh God, look, honey, that's where we were. We remember we were right down there. We couldn't find our Tupperware, and we had no idea that that was connected to that thing over there." So how do you want to go here? Do you want to ask the viewers some specific questions as we maybe zoom in a little bit to certain areas of the poster that might be up for potential changes?
Yeah, I think we can just zoom around on the poster. And I mean, one question I had for you is that what questions do you get from people about dry falls and about the ice age floods? I mean, what really drives, what do people want to know more about? Is it the volume of water? Is it the age? Is it the basalt?
Uh,
Are there
Thank you.
themes?
I'm hesitating because I'm remembering that Tom Foster and I made a video and just gave it to the Dry Falls Visitor Center. And it's before we even had a drone. We had a guy flying an ultralight over the over the Dry Falls area. This is back more than 10 years ago. And I remember talking to David, the ranger up there, and just kind of thinking about all the people that have asked me off the street about certain things. And I tended to focus on the height of the water. Like it was a pet peeve of mine that it wasn't a Niagara Falls thing. It's really got nothing to do with Niagara Falls, really. Uh, Maybe you guys have a different opinion, but to me, the Niagara Falls thing is a problem as opposed to a helpful ancillary to what we've got going on here. So the depth of the water coming over the cliff, to me, is always the winner, where you say you take that height of that cliff, and that's the minimum amount of water coming over that cliff at any modest amount of flood coming down the upper Grand Coulee. So you're not trying to comment on that necessarily. The volume of the water, there's no portrayal of that necessarily. Uh, are you giving any impression that this is not just a Niagara Falls scene? I guess you are, but like,
Yeah, and that's one I've struggled with, especially with some of the recent bedrock erosional modeling that challenges that concept of this being such a great depth of water and
yeah,
instead models it with lower flows and lower depths. So I shy away from making definitive statements about water depth or volume or flow.
really?
Yeah,
Well,
but
who's
I mean,
saying there's less than 250 feet of water coming over that 250-foot high cliff?
I can send you the papers, but some of
Okay, all right.
the
Interesting. All right.
I think the thing we can all agree on, it was a lot of water,
it was a lot of
Lot of
regardless
water.
water.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
of how much. But
And I guess to
And they
answer
still
Joe's,
model quite a lot of water. So
sure.
yeah, and that's something we
Yeah.
could think about adding is some kind of depiction or quantification of water depth or volume or something.
Well, I'll just add one more thing with that, and then we can move on to address your question, Joel. I've been live streaming from my classroom this quarter, so I just did one yesterday at noon, and we were talking about the new paper by Lydia Steisch and Matthew Morris on the incision rate and the age of Hell's Canyon, essentially. And in the class, I was trying to, and I interviewed Lydia Steisch in this Zoom interview format last Friday. And I was talking to Lydia about headward erosion and kind of almost a horizontal story as opposed to a vertical story when you're dealing with major amounts of water erosion. And I had just yesterday afternoon, after that class was done, a bunch of people emailing me and me leaving YouTube comments about, oh, it's just like Niagara Falls. It's just like eating back. So for a light bulb went off for them that if you're cutting Hell's Canyon, it's more of a uh, upstream eating away as opposed to just a vertical incision story. And
Yep.
I don't know if it's worth talking about the lip of Dry Falls migrating northward.
And that's the way we have this currently depicted. The arrows of the flow are
Yeah,
coming in the other direction,
right.
but one could draw an arrow perhaps on the cartoon at the bottom right showing that the cataract lip is moving upstream.
Oh, I kind of like that now. Dan, are
Yeah.
you able to zoom into the lower right?
Yeah, let me switch out of this view and we'll
Sure.
we'll get the
This is
zoomable
fun.
version.
I know.
Because I've wondered about what you just brought up, Nick, is how do you depict on a static image this
Right.
dynamic process of headward erosion?
And not it being gradual headward, but these fits and starts if you have
Hmm.
dozens of floods.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I said this was going to be a half an hour. There's no way this is going to be a half an hour. I'm having a great time with this. I'll go as long as you guys want to go. Yeah, I love the elegance of this. I'm assuming the main point is that the visitors always see one little view from the visitor center and the parking lot as they eat their cheeseburger, but there's way more to that scene than just the one little thing. Dan, can you point out where the visitor center is and what the typical view is that people enjoy?
Sure. Do you see my cursor moving
I
around
do,
there?
yes.
Yeah, so the visitor center is about right here. The view looking this way. So most of what people are looking at is this cliff right here and a little bit of this one back here.
Yes.
But the point with this figure is just to show that the entire Great Cataract Group, as Brett's called it, is actually over 3.5 miles wide,
Right.
and it's not just this one area right here. So kind of just reinforcing that scale and size of what we're looking at. But I do like the idea of saying something about the cliffs eroding northward as the water's coming southward. That's an interesting idea, and it would work well on this figure, I think.
It would add, but I think as Joel just said, how do you do that without just messing up the whole figure?
I got to think about that.
And again, I'm just processing in my own head as I'm thinking about Joel's question. The expensive animation that we made for PBS with the water coming over Dry Falls, the reaction is usually one, wow, I think you guys over exaggerated how much water's coming over that cliff. I'm like, well, if anything, I think we were conservative. Now I'm tuning out Joel right now, I guess, and his papers he wants to cite. But the other thing is people kind of coming with a negative point of view, like, I think you screwed up. Like that cliff wasn't there before the big flood. Same idea. Like they have the concept that there were multiple floods and that you're enlarging a coulee's length with successive events. And so I think for those that especially have thought a little bit about the Ice Age floods, they kind of reject the idea that there's this stationary rim and then here comes this water and it's not doing anything to the rim. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that video is so successful, especially when you see the little RV going across the bottom of the screen with the floods, is in that it connects our present day reality with what was happening in the past. And whether it's it's obviously not going to be 100% accurate to what was happening at the time.
Right.
I feel like as a depiction, it's really successful in like just getting people to think about what it could have been like,
Yes.
even if it's not perfect. So
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
don't know.
Okay.
I
Um,
love it.
Thank you. I love this. I mean, I can see Mima Mounds right here. Like, isn't that a feature that have you labeled the Mima Mounds anywhere? Do you want to lean into the Mima Mounds part of this? Oh, silt mounds. Excuse me. Okay. Silt mounds.
Silt
Um,
mounds,
yeah, I
Mima
mean,
Lake.
that's Joel, where do you stand on that? These are still mysterious features, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've been doing a little more reading about them, and they're they're not that mysterious in other parts of the world. It's
Really?
it's normal that mounds form around clumps of vegetation, and then that creates sort of a self-reinforcing process that allows the mound to grow. I've seen theories that they're remnants of a once continuous blanket of loess that was winnowed away into mounds.
Huh.
The way I've described them here is constructional, that they built up on a flood-swept surface around plant colonies. I mean, you can see in the image that they're greener than the adjacent terrain around them.
Mhm.
Um, and there's plenty of literature on how plants stabilize mounds. And so I don't see them as such a mystery currently.
Okay. Well,
I
you
can
heard
And
send
it
to
you more
set
first,
papers.
everybody.
separating these from the Mima Mounds over here on the west side, which are very different
Right. The
as
Mima
well.
mounds are composed of gravel, which is not blown around by the wind. So
Huh.
they require a different explanation.
All
But
right.
these things work for me as vegetation stabilized. They're a process involving plants and wind and water and silt.
Well, the fact that they're there at Dry Falls is news to me. So without this imagery, I guess I wouldn't have known that. I think of them
Hmm.
over by Ritzville, heading towards Spokane, and that's about it as far as a dominant place. But it seems like they're everywhere there if you zoom out. Okay, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Why did you shoot over here, Dan?
I was just looking at the mounds up the side, and
Oh,
then
okay,
came to the potholes by chance.
sure. Well, you threw in the Caribou Trail. I love it. Okay, so yeah, Uh, let's zoom into some cultural features that people would recognize, maybe wherever we want to go. The visitor center is the place to start, sure.
So yeah, so connecting that human scale to the bigger scale, I actually kind of drew in this visitor center depiction, which is pretty easy because it's basically a rectangle. Um, um,
Nice.
but and if you really zoom in, you can see
There
the
you
pavilion,
go.
the WPA built
Yes,
viewpoint, which is kind of neat,
love it.
along with some ghostly cars there. Um, but we did add a little blurb about the visitor center itself, the structure, as well as what it's like now. If you go there, you can get some knowledgeable interpretations of the landscape by the
Yes,
staff there and get a
yes.
great view while you're at it. So um, yeah, we thought that was important to connect to what people are seeing when they're there, and then the trails as well. We included several of the state park trails.
Good.
You're the ones that go around Umatilla Rock. And we've got the Camp Delaney Environmental Learning Center there for those who are familiar with that. And then kind of the very northern end of the campground. The golf course there was very bright green in the photo, so I toned it down a little bit just to kind of de-emphasize it. It was the first thing my eyes went to when I looked at the photo. So
Yes.
um, it's there for context, but it's not, overly dramatic.
Okay.
So you got the highways labeled on here. We go up here, we've got Cooley City,
Look at that.
um, which you can
Nice.
see pretty good detail, as well as the main canal coming out of Banks Lake. Um, so connecting a lot of those um, cultural aspects of the landscape here as well to the physical.
It's important. It's important, especially a heavily visited place like that. You know that. Any way you can reinforce people's nostalgia, their memories, their locations, um, that sucks people in. I'm just talking from my point of view, but I'm sure that's what you're thinking as well. And now I'm drawn to these basalt columns. Are you really going in and like, what are you doing?
So two things here. One is that, when you drape an image over LiDAR, things often get distorted in the vertical space. It
Yes,
kind of stretches out the photo.
right.
And in a lot of places, that actually had the effect here of looking like basalt columns. So it worked out really, really well for most of these cliffs. So I didn't have to do a lot of touch up work. The one thing I did add, though, were these sort of horizontal layers in between that separate
Look
the
at
bedding.
that.
So I did kind of go in and manually draw those in. You can see some more down here,
I
just to
love it.
kind of to add in the suggestion of layers. They're
Yes.
not overly detailed if you zoom in, and they're not even really terribly accurate, to be honest. Um, but when you zoom out, the effect is it gives that reinforcement of what it looks like in reality. And this is I think Joel said like a photorealistic view with the photo draped over it, but it's actually quite a bit different than what you would see if you were there. Basalted dark rock, so
Right.
most of this landscape is a lot darker brown or darker black than what we're seeing here. This is actually brightened up quite a bit, just in order to be able to put text over it more legibly and things like that. So it's photorealistic in the sense that it does have a photo on it, and we're using it to connect to what people are used to seeing. But it is a little bit different than the full saturation of what a photo would look like. Like for Google Earth, for example, some people see these maps and they're like, well, just look at it in Google Earth. It's the same thing, right?
Right.
Um, but it's not. I mean, Google Earth is a great tool and I love it and I use it all the time, but there is a benefit to being able to subtly edit an image and a map, um, in a way that helps you communicate the story and the message of a place. And maps are all simplifications of reality at the end of the day. And this one, even though it has a lot of detail, is still a simplification of the Earth. So
Well, this
I don't
is
know, I'm just rambling here, but
no, you're not. No, you're not. Come on. I know you like to stay behind the scenes and everything, Daniel, but I mean, for those that are new to you and your work, this is just the most recent example of this whole gallery now of posters and imagery like this. I mean, and so you have a gift. It's talent, it's drive, it's an eye that people don't have. And it's just thrilling to see this thing. I mean, I just love this so much. Yeah, they can screw off if they're just saying, look at Google Earth. Give me a break. This is totally different and way more valuable. How about those longitudinal grooves, Joel? Do you want to me, that's my eye is drawn to those. And what are we saying about those? Yeah, okay. You chose that text, perhaps, Joel?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to write the text in a way that didn't take up too much space
Yeah.
and provided a process-based description. So the process here is flood water flowing over this surface, stripping away any sediment, and then there are horizontally oriented vortices, like a sideways tornado in the water, that is interpreted as the process that erodes these parallel channels or longitudinal grooves
Huh.
in the bedrock. And these are features that we see at a much smaller scale in modern environments with flowing water. And what's unique about these ones is just their sheer vastness.
No, that is a stunning imagery right there. And it spurs a question for me, probably a dumb one, but I'll ask it anyway. Why isn't there a bunch of silt beds right there, like there is at the base of Steamboat Rock? Why isn't the entire floor of the Upper Grand Coulee the same amount of late Wisconsin silts?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Don't either. So
At
it's a,
that time that those silt beds in Upper Grand Coulee were accumulating, you had this, I've heard sort of a lazy river or a flowing lake that was impounded by the remaining Okanagan lobe and was flowing out of Glacial Lake Columbia through Upper Grand Coulee and presumably over Dry Falls.
Huh.
But as far as I know, those silt beds aren't present in anywhere in Dry Falls that I've seen.
Looks pretty naked.
It looks pretty stripped.
Yeah.
So
Huh.
um,
Well, that's the
part
power.
of the answer maybe, but this surface was just high and dry during that time, and the water was spilling out a lower
Mm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
spillover point.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks as though it was catastrophically flooded, and then that was it. It hasn't been modified since.
Right. They turned off the spigot.
Yeah, the
Uh,
last thing it felt was very erosive, intense floodwater.
yeah. Wow. Well, that speaks to the power of a poster like this. A bunch of questions are going to pop up that are new questions based on this unique perspective.
I was hoping you would say that because I think there are discoveries to be made by just looking at the landscape in this way.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, you sent me my script to read out loud right there.
Yeah.
Just kidding. You didn't.
The
No.
other thing that's Dan is now showing is you can see the Cooley monocline there
Oh,
just
yeah. I
above
just noticed that as
in the
well.
lower left. I think that's so cool the way that shows up in LiDAR and photos.
Yes.
Um, the layers there were were tilted and fractured, and that fracturing guided the position of Dry Falls and Grand Coulee.
Hmm.
In other words, the channel followed the fractured rock that we're seeing in the monocline.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a request to pull way back out and
Oop, a little too far.
wow, you really
That's the
are.
postage stamp version.
You're a state employee. You're a public servant. You really pulled out there. Um, is this going to be the first of a dozen different Ice Age flood posters using new? Oh boy.
That's the hope. So
It's
we have
almost-
Moses Cooley on deck,
wow.
Potholes
Potholes
Cooley.
Coulee.
Yeah. And we're accepting nominations for all
Okay.
areas.
Okay. So let's play with that before we quit. So you've even come up with a little label for the series. CSLS01.
It's not a terribly catchy acronym, so if you've got a better one, let us know.
Right.
So maybe something that spells out flood or something. I
Right,
don't know.
right. Well, so this is number one of a series of, I assume, Ice Age flood or maybe Pleistocene posters using the new LiDAR, primarily from Eastern Washington, but not necessarily. I'm editing myself as I ask this question, I guess. You got in my head now. Dan, is it gonna have a similar look and feel? Do you have this look, and especially if you're in the Scablands, you're gonna continue with this kind of oblique, muted pastels kind of a scene?
Yeah, I think so. Joel's kind of convinced me that that's probably the best way to go, just to sort of relate what we're used to seeing to the environment, and you know, um, at the same time show more details with LiDAR. So yeah, I think a similar sort of semi photo view, sort of LiDAR and photo merged, I think is going to probably work the best. There might be instances where a side map might show some other sorts of details that are shown better with a different kind of visualization, but I think in general, yeah, I think the same look and feel, particularly since it's Eastern Washington and it's got a similar environment across much of it. I think will work well, hopefully.
I think it will too. And if it's just easy visually to know that this is a set, almost like trading cards, like you've got some kind of look that you're like, oh, they got another one. We're adding to this series. Like I think that would be sweet. Joel, what are the requirements, the bare bones requirements as you select spots? It needs to have what to be on the list to be added to this series?
There's no requirement. I like if it has, I mean, what I think is so cool about this view is that it has sort of this taxonomy of classic landforms present in the view. We have the
Yes.
streamlined bars, the plunge pools, the potholes. There's a story associated with it.
Hmm.
So
And
I
so
think
you mentioned Moses Cooley, and what was the other one you mentioned that's definitely going to be part of the series?
potholes
Potholes,
school.
Cooley.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all three of those have the taxonomy thing you just mentioned. Like there's a whole number of terms that can be thrown in, or you kind of have one grand scene, and then you've got a bunch of little sub stories going on as you drill down into them. That makes sense to me. In both of those other places, I can visualize what you'd be drilling
Hmm.
into as well. Dan, you can have the same kind of oblique. Have you already played with Moses Cooley or potholes? You can have the same kind of, you've got the deep shadows, both of those places as well.
Potholes works really well. The challenge with Moses Cooley is that it's so long, you kind of have to choose
Oh,
a
yeah,
focus. So there
right.
might be more, maybe there's one at Three Devils, maybe there's another one at the Okanagan, or Withrow Moraine, I should say. So yeah,
Wow,
it
yeah.
might be multiple ones using this sort of concept and
Huh,
technique. Yeah.
huh. Yeah,
I think West Bar could also be another good one, although that one's a little more singular in the type of feature that it's showing, perhaps. Yeah, a lot of places could work well. Steamboat Rock, Upper Grand Coulee certainly comes to mind.
well, just spitballing with you guys, it seems to me this series is not going to new places, but presenting it in a very new way. And that's what I'm gathering from this poster. And I'm excited to see the others, of course, because, yeah, I think I'm like everybody else. I'm tired of seeing the same four photos and the same four little cartoons or whatever. Like, I want my breath taken away like it was when I first laid eyes on this thing. And I know that you guys can come up with that, whether it's a huge scale like this or maybe it is a smaller feature, but it's just like, wow, I've never seen it like that before. Almost like, okay, now I'm out of control. Dan, one of my favorites of yours is one of the first ones that I saw where you're in Skamania County in the dense forests of the Cascades and you've got that lava flow. I think it was a singular lava flow essentially buried in the trees. And I just showed that to Mike Eddy, one of these geologists I've been working with currently. He's down in Spirit Lake area. And he was just like, what is this? Like, I could use this. We're actually looking for flows deep in the Cascade. So I think that kind of thing where something's hidden or it's in plain sight, but it's kind of been hidden from many of us who drive over the thing every time we go to the grocery store or whatever. Like, that's the excitement for me. And maybe the viewers will say something similar.
Yeah, and I mean that's the great utility of LiDAR is being able to clear away those trees and see a lot of the landforms, which
Ah,
of course there's not a lot of trees or vegetation in eastern Washington,
right.
but yet it's still useful in showing a lot of these details depending on how you're using the data and how you're shading things and lighting things. So um, there's a lot of different utility to it, even in places where there's not a ton of vegetation.
Totally agree. Joel, are we wrapping up or do you want to do more slides?
I think we're wrapping up. We've been at
Okay.
it for what, an hour now?
I guess so.
Um,
Yeah.
Oh
What
yeah,
wow,
else?
yeah.
we don't
Would
have
you,
to, but
no,
I
no.
think we're
What else would you like to
we
add, Joel, before we close this one off?
no, I just wanted, I mean, just I just wanted to thank you for your time and your enthusiasm and for everybody who watched and commented. I'll be in I love YouTube comments. I love
Me
social
too.
media, so
Me too. Me too.
I'll be in there engaging with people. And we're we're making this for people who are interested in it. So we truly do value everyone's feedback. There's no stupid questions or bad suggestions.
Hey, Dan, can you stop your share? Let's finish it off with just
Sure.
a couple of basics before we stop the recording. So, either of you, today's date is May 28th of 2025. So, roughly when are people going to be able to find this new poster when it's officially published, and where again can they go to get a hard copy or download a digital copy?
Yeah, so our goal is to have this published and printed by the end of this next month. So probably starting sometime in July,
Okay.
I imagine the poster will be available both digitally and in print. Like Joel said, we're hoping to give a bunch to the Dry Falls Visitor Center for them to get out into the world, and then we also will have them here at our Washington Geology Library in Olympia available. So yeah, and we usually do, our staff does various public outreach events throughout the year, so we usually bring posters and things to those as well. So I would look forward in all those places.
Great. Well, thanks to the
Yeah.
both of you. This is a perfect example of the value of the skill that you guys have, and I can easily see those in many science classrooms around the state and beyond. And that's just my limited vision, but I mean, it's not stuff just going on a shelf somewhere. This is user-friendly geology that intersects with people's lives, and that's why I'm so excited about this new project. So thanks to both of you very much. Hold on the line. I'm just going to stop the recording. We can talk for a couple more minutes, but
Yeah.
thank you, Joel. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.